What if the most powerful trade routes on Earth were completely invisible? Imagine a network so vast it dwarfs every highway, shipping lane, and flight path combined. A system that operates silently in the crushing darkness of the deep ocean. This is the hidden architecture of our modern world, a circulatory system for the lifeblood of the 21st century: data. For centuries, we etched our progress onto the surface of the planet, with ships, railways, and flight paths. We looked to the roads we could see as the measure of our interconnectedness. But the greatest revolution in trade isn't happening on the surface at all. It's happening far beneath the waves, buried in the silt and sand of the ocean floor. This is the true nervous system of our global economy, a realm we rarely see, now home to the most critical infrastructure humanity has ever built. The conduits of this new era are astonishingly delicate. At their core are strands of purified glass, each no thicker than a human hair. Through these fiber optic cables, information encoded into pulses of light travels at nearly the speed of light itself, guided across immense distances. Right now, your connection is being routed through this very network. But it's carrying so much more. It's carrying the engine of the global economy. Every second, trillions of dollars in value move across the planet through these hidden channels, a flow of wealth that eclipses anything that came before it. We still think of wealth in physical terms: colossal container ships, vaults filled with gold, or stacks of cash. But these are now just echoes of a former economic reality. The overwhelming majority of the world's financial transactions no longer exist as physical objects. They exist only as pulses of light traveling through glass, a bank transfer from New York to Tokyo, a design file sent from California to Taiwan, all of it reduced to a stream of ones and zeros carried on beams of light. Over 1.5 million kilometers of these fiber optic cables now stretch across the globe, a web of glass that binds our world together. This network carries over 99% of all international data. It is the foundation of the cloud, the highway for artificial intelligence, and the rails for global finance. It is, without exaggeration, the single most important piece of infrastructure in the modern world. This is the digital Silk Road, a modern successor to the ancient trade routes, but infinitely faster and more consequential. It is a strategic landscape hidden in plain sight, a battlefield for geopolitical influence. Control the flow of data, and you control the flow of capital, innovation, and power. As nations and corporations race to lay their own private pathways across the ocean floor, this invisible network is quietly rewriting the rules of power and economic dominance. Understanding this hidden world is essential to understanding how our economy truly functions and what the future of global competition will look like. The story of the 21st century is being written in light, at the bottom of the sea. For centuries, global trade was something you could see, touch, and hear. It was the creak of a wooden hull, the scent of spices in a bustling port, the glint of gold exchanged hand to hand. From the caravans of the ancient Silk Road to the great sailing ships charting new oceans, the flow of wealth was tangible, physical. Empires were built on this visibility. To control the world, you had to control its physical arteries. Power was projected by controlling ports, strategic canals, and vital shipping lanes. The chokepoints of the world, places like the Strait of Malacca or the Suez Canal, were the hinges of history, determining the fortunes of nations. This logic culminated in the 20th century with the miracle of containerization. The standardized steel box democratized shipping, creating a hyper-efficient global supply chain. Power still followed physical goods, just packed more neatly. Even today, this is the image that comes to mind when we think of the global economy. Massive ships, stacked high with containers, patiently crossing the vastness of the ocean. It's a powerful, reassuring image of physical reality. But that picture, while not wrong, is dangerously incomplete. It's a snapshot of a world that is rapidly fading into the background. Because while the movement of physical goods still underpins our lives, the true center of gravity, the most valuable, most contested layer of the global economy, has shifted. It has become invisible. A second parallel economy has emerged, one that operates at the speed of light. It's an economy built not on atoms, but on bits. Think of that container ship again. The value of the goods inside is substantial. But what about the data that surrounds it? The digital bill of lading, the insurance policy, the real-time location tracking, the customs declarations, the financial transaction that paid for it all. That data is often more valuable and far more agile than the cargo itself. This new economy is a complex ecosystem of interconnected systems, each moving unimaginable value in the blink of an eye. First, there are the financial transactions. Every day, trillions of dollars crisscross the globe, not as cash in a vault, but as digital signals. Stock trades, currency exchanges, credit card swipes. This is the circulatory system of modern capitalism, a torrent of data where a delay of a few milliseconds can mean the difference between profit and loss. The world's financial centers are no longer just cities with big buildings. They are nodes in a global network, their dominance measured by the speed and reliability of their connections. Then, there is the engine of the modern internet, cloud computing. These anonymous, hyper-secure buildings are the new factories and warehouses of the digital age. When you stream a movie, join a video call, or access a company file, you are summoning data from a facility like this, which could be hundreds or thousands of miles away. The cloud is not an ethereal mist. It is a physical infrastructure of servers, switches, and cooling systems strategically placed around the globe. It's where our collective digital lives are stored, processed, and distributed. Powering the next revolution is artificial intelligence. AI models, from the large language models that answer our questions to the algorithms that recommend our next purchase, are voracious consumers of data. Training a single advanced AI requires sifting through a significant portion of the entire internet. And once trained, these models are deployed globally, constantly processing new information, a process called inference. This constant, massive-scale movement of training and inference data between data centers is creating unprecedented demand on the world's digital infrastructure. And finally, there are the digital services that weave it all together. Social media platforms that connect billions of people, streaming services that deliver entertainment on demand, collaborative software that allows teams to work together from opposite ends of the earth. Each of these services represents a constant two-way flow of data. We are no longer just passive consumers of information. We are active creators, uploading photos, sending messages, and generating a digital footprint with every click and swipe. This isn't just communication, it's a new form of trade, where attention and data are the currencies. All of it, the money, the cloud, the AI, the services, moves through a completely different system. It doesn't rely on canals or ports. Its pathways are not drawn on conventional maps. This is a world built on fiber optic threads thinner than a human hair, running in silent darkness along the ocean floor. A system that is almost entirely invisible, utterly silent, and for all practical purposes, instantaneous. This is the infrastructure of the 21st century, and the nations and corporations that control it are building the empires of tomorrow. Today, over 99% of international data travels through subsea fiber optic cables. Not satellites, not wireless networks, cables. Inside them are strands of glass thinner than a human hair. Through those strands travel light signals carrying bank transfers, stock trades, government communications, corporate operations, and AI systems. Every second, millions of transactions flow through these networks, trillions of dollars, every single day. We have moved from geopolitics to technopolitics. In the past, power came from controlling land. Now power comes from controlling connection points. A cable landing station, where these fibers reach land, can now be more valuable than a port, because whoever controls that node controls the speed of money. The map of global power is being redrawn. For most of the 20th century, the world's digital arteries were laid and controlled by a select few. In an era defined by national interests, telecommunications companies, often state-owned, formed powerful consortiums. Together, they undertook the monumental task of connecting continents, one copper and later fiber optic cable at a time. This was the age of shared infrastructure, a global commons built through painstaking negotiation and immense capital investment. The process was deliberate, bureaucratic, and slow, designed to serve the predictable rhythms of international phone calls and telex messages. Every bit and byte of data traveled along these shared highways, its path dictated by decades-old agreements. In this system, geography was destiny. Traffic was funneled through a handful of powerful network hubs: London, New York City, and Frankfurt. These cities became the grand interchanges of the global network. Their status as financial capitals was not a coincidence. It was a direct consequence of their position at the crossroads of information. Proximity to the end of a cable meant faster access to market data, a millisecond advantage that could be worth billions. An entire ecosystem of finance, law, and commerce grew around these digital ports, reinforcing their dominance. To be physically located, there was to be at the center of the world's economic conversation. But the nature of data has changed. The quiet hum of telephone calls has been replaced by a torrent of data-intensive services. High-definition video streaming, cloud computing, and the vast, ever-growing demands of artificial intelligence. The Internet's center of gravity shifted from the old telecom exchanges to the colossal data centers of a new kind of power: the hyperscale tech company. For these giants, the old consortium model became a bottleneck. They were no longer just users of the internet. They were its primary destination. The traditional system, where bandwidth was sold by the slice, was too slow, too expensive, and too inflexible for their exponential growth. They needed more than a slice. They needed the entire bakery. And so they are fundamentally changing the architecture of the internet itself. Companies like Google, Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft are no longer just tenants on the global network. They are becoming its biggest landlords. They are building their own private subsea cables, multi-billion-dollar projects that crisscross the globe on routes of their own choosing. This is a paradigm shift. Instead of negotiating with dozens of partners to build a cable connecting two countries, a single company can now decide to connect its data center in Virginia directly to its data center in Dublin, or its campus in California to its operations in Taiwan. They are bypassing the traditional telecom hubs entirely, rendering the old geographic chokepoints less relevant. The result is a new world map being drawn in strands of light on the ocean floor. These companies are creating direct, ultra-high speed, and privately controlled routes between the global regions that matter most to their business. This isn't about connecting Paris to New York anymore. It's about creating a seamless, private superhighway between a company's own assets. This allows them to move staggering amounts of data, user information, internal communications, and the raw material for AI training with maximum efficiency and security. They control the hardware, the software, and the path the data takes from end to end. It's a vertically integrated system on a planetary scale. This rewiring of the world has profound consequences. When you remove intermediaries, you don't just increase efficiency, you fundamentally shift the balance of power. The ability to control the physical infrastructure of the internet confers a new form of sovereignty. Decisions that were once made in the halls of government or by international committees are now being made in corporate boardrooms in Silicon Valley. This creates a parallel network, a private internet layered on top of the public one, with its own rules, its own priorities, and its own gatekeepers. The question is no longer just about connecting the world, but about who owns the connections. And as this new map takes shape, it raises a critical question for the future. In a world bisected by private digital empires, who ensures the network remains open for all? New regions are rising: West Africa, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Latin America. Countries that were once digitally distant are now directly connected. Latency drops, access improves, and suddenly they become attractive to cloud providers, fintech startups, and AI infrastructure. This is digital sovereignty, and it determines who participates in global wealth and who gets left behind. And fusing fiber, arc spark and fiber glow. But despite their importance, these cables are fragile. They run through narrow corridors like the Luzon Strait, the Red Sea, and the Strait of Malacca. In some areas, dozens of cables run side by side. One accident, one anchor drag, one disruption, and entire regions can lose connectivity. This has created a new kind of strategic territory: cable chokepoints. Nations are now monitoring, protecting, and potentially tapping into these cables. Naval forces deploy underwater drones. Surveillance systems track cable activity, because controlling these routes means controlling information flow. And information flow is economic power. Cutting a cable today is the modern equivalent of blockading a nation's economy. But it happens silently, without warning. In this system, speed is everything. Milliseconds matter, especially in high-frequency trading, where faster data means faster decisions, and faster decisions mean profit. This has triggered a global shift. Data centers are moving closer to cable landing stations. Entire industries are relocating. Cities once overlooked are becoming critical nodes in the global economy. We are now seeing the rise of a new class of nations, Tier 1 digital nations. Not defined by size or military strength, but by connectivity, latency, and infrastructure. Countries that host key cable intersections gain a permanent advantage, because in the digital economy, distance equals delay, and delay equals lost opportunity. Economic gravity is no longer geographic, it is network-based. But this system is not neutral. It is becoming divided. Different geopolitical blocs are building separate fiber networks, reducing reliance on shared infrastructure, creating parallel systems, parallel routes, parallel internets. AI-driven traffic systems now dynamically control how data flows. And whoever owns the cables controls those decisions. The internet is no longer just digital, it is physical, and increasingly political. A new kind of border is being drawn. Not on land, not in the sky, but across the ocean floor. A glass curtain, invisible but powerful. Separating networks, dividing influence, redirecting wealth. The digital Silk Road is not a metaphor. It is a physical reality beneath our feet. Wealth no longer flows where ships dock. It flows where light lands. The nations that control landing stations, protect subsea corridors, and host low-latency intersections dictate the speed of global capital. And in a world where speed defines advantage, they dictate the future of wealth. The shift has already happened. The only question is, which side of the cable are you on?